Yo, what is up, my Nakama? So my name is Daniel, and I'm a first-year medical student, and I just finished studying for the day. Today is Saturday, and we have our final exam before Christmas break next Friday, and it's going to cover bacteria, immunology, stuff about fungus, and some antimicrobial stuff. So there's a lot to cover, but I feel pretty confident about my studying today, and I thought I would kind of share my approach to my study today and how I sort of did spaced repetition and how I reviewed a lot of the material that we've been covering for the past week. So to get started, the main thing I used was Sketchy. I was using it earlier today, so quick flashback. Boop. Okay, wait, I have to show you guys this thing right here.
So in Sketchy, like they try and teach you bacteria and microbiology through like memory mnemonics and stuff. And this one, it was like a communist kid in a college dorm room, and the sickle in communism is supposed to represent sickle cell disease. And because you have sickle cell disease, you're like asplenic, so you're at a higher risk of infection. But this is just hilarious. I love Sketchy.
And back to the present. So yeah, I love using Sketchy. I think it's just an amazing resource. Basically what Sketchy Micro is it's a lot of like cartoons and drawings, and they go over different bacteria and different microbes, and they basically go over their pathogenesis, how their virulence factors, and you know what types of diseases those bacteria and different microbes cause. And it's such a great way to memorize all those different bacteria and to really differentiate between them, because you know a lot of them do present with the same symptoms, but as clinicians we're going to have to be able to differentiate them because different bacteria have different treatment options, of course. But anyways, just to kind of take you through how I studied today, the very first thing that I did in the morning was Anki. I did Anki for about 2 hours, finished all my reviews, and then today I actually added a whole bunch of new cards. So basically what I did was I went through a bunch of the Sketchy Micro videos, and there's tags in this deck that I use that's called Zanki. And as I would watch a Sketchy Micro video, I would unsuspend the cards related to that tag. And instead of waiting to do those cards, I would actually watch a video and then immediately do the cards, so that like it really sunk into my mind, because there's just so many bacteria to know, and that's kind of stressful how many bacteria that we have to know. But you know, doing the Anki and doing the Sketchy Micro is really making it easy to keep it all in my mind. And another thing that I've been doing that I haven't done too often, but I found that it's really good, is like making mind maps. Or not even mind maps, but just kind of charts between bacteria. So for example, there's different ways to classify the bacteria based on like their gram stains, or like based off of what medium or agar they can grow in. So for example, when I'm doing a mind map, like the very first thing I'll do is separate all classes of bacteria between whether they're gram positive, whether they're gram negative, or whether they don't gram stain well at all. And then from there, I'll build out a whole like map of the different types of bacteria that there are. And that's kind of also a great way to repeat the information and to know the differences between all these different types of bacteria. And by the way, like there's so many different types of bacteria, and the more I learn about the different types of microbes and bacteria, the more scared I am of going outside, because just all these bacteria like that can cause death in like 24 hours, like it really gets you nervous. But you know, you just gotta live life, and you know, if it happens, just you gotta get treated right away. But it's actually really cool what we're learning so far, because I feel like this is the first time in med school where we're learning things that we can really like diagnose, and things that we'll really see in the clinic. Because you know, when we were learning about like anatomy and biochem, I mean, some of it is applicable to real life, but a lot of it was mostly like the basic sciences and the physiology behind diseases. But now we're learning like real problems to real diseases, and real solutions to them, like which antibiotics to use, or what medications to give someone if they have a certain infection. So it's pretty cool, it's one of the first times where you actually feel like a doctor. So once I did my Anki and watched the Sketchy videos I wanted to watch, I had lunch. As you know, I do intermittent fasting, so I don't eat breakfast in the morning, but I have a huge lunch, which was awesome. I watched the newest episode of My Hero Academia, which was so lit. I won't spoil anything, but some hands were thrown. And after lunch, what I did was I still had some more Sketchy micro videos to watch. So I finished up with those videos, did the rest of the Anki cards, and then afterwards, I kind of finished my studies around 6 or 7 p.m. And right now it's actually about 9 p.m. So what I did then was, I watched the in-house lectures at 2 times speed, and I usually only watch them once through, but I think that the lecturer is going to pull a lot of material from his lecture slides in the exam. So I kind of went over this previous week's lectures again, like the PowerPoint slides, just to make sure that everything I'm learning from Anki and from Sketchy kind of matches up with the material that he covers, and to make sure that I don't have any huge gaps. A lot of the times when you're using like third-party resources like Sketchy and Anki, like this Anki pre-made deck, they don't always align with your in-house lectures. And obviously you want to pass your in-house lectures because you don't want to fail out of medical school, but at the same time you do want to be studying for step 1, which is my goal. But so far it's worked, but I do want to do well in this exam, and I kind of want to find the best balance between studying for step 1 and still doing really well in my in-house exams. And hopefully, by at least watching the in-house lectures and going over them after doing like the third-party material, hopefully that's a good balance between, comfortably passing the exam while still preparing for the big boy, step 1. But yeah, so basically all I did today was Anki, Sketchy, and then review my lectures. And I kind of take it 1 week at a time. So we did have immunology 2 weeks ago, and next week is our last sort of block of lectures before our exam. So next week is when I'll really go all the way back to those lectures and like review those slides. But also remember, because I'm doing Anki, I have been inadvertently always reviewing the material even from 3 weeks ago, because that's how Anki works, that's how the spaced repetition works. So I'm confident that I don't have like huge gaps in my knowledge between what we learned 3 weeks ago versus what we're learning now, which is like the beauty of Anki. But I will actually go back to the slides usually 2 or 3 days before the exams. And I'll also do practice questions, and it's kind of hard to find practice questions right now. Usually our professor will give us some practice questions, or I will use this program called Amboss. They have like a step 1 Q bank of questions, so I'll do those questions. Or I'll try to find maybe a textbook like BRS or Lippincotts. I'll do one of those end of chapter in-house tests, because at the end of the day, like the best way to assess yourself and to see if you'll do well in the exam is to do practice questions and take practice tests. And I usually try and do that starting 4 or 5 days before the exam. Well, the cool thing with with Sketchy now and Boards and Beyond is that when you watch one of their lectures or one of their videos, they do have like end of lecture quizzes. And so I always take those quizzes right after watching the lecture just to see how well I retain the information. So those are really good to get an idea of the types of questions that can be asked. So I'll do those as I learn the material. Yeah, most of my like really intense like practice test taking happens maybe 4 or 5 days before the exam. And then a day before the exam, I just try and remain really calm. Usually the only thing I end up doing is my Anki reviews, because at that point I've really covered all the material I could to the best of my ability. And then I just have to trust myself and hope that I do well in the exam. But yeah, this was just kind of a quick video I wanted to make, just explaining my study process and how I approach a medical school exam. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope with whatever you do out there, you're successful, and have a great Christmas break. And as always, dattebayo.